everybody, welcome to the channel. So it's Carlos first to start off with. I just wanted to get a little preamble in just so everybody knows what's going on. So today I'm going to be talking to Chris from CRT Sportscards, and I'm going to bring him on in a second. And we're going to be chatting predominantly about Project 2020, but we'll take a couple of minutes off the top, talking a little bit about how he ended up becoming kind of the de facto analyst of Project 2020, which in itself is kind of an interesting thing. So if any of you end up joining us somewhere along midstream or along the way as well, what we can do is if we have any comments or questions, I'll be more than happy to throw them up if they're kind of pertinent to the conversation. We do have the luxury of being able to kind of sit there and talk through some of these things. And we've got a couple of different things talking about Project 2020, how we got here, and then what's going on right now, and then a little bit about into the future. So I think it'll be kind of interesting. And before I commented any more on it, I've already done a video on it. I wanted to make sure that I brought somebody in who had already been looking at it. It's better to have somebody who's paying attention and a little bit more closely than I would be. And that way we can have a little bit more of an understanding. So in that regard, I'm going to bring Chris on. Hey, Chris, how's it going?
Hey, Carlos, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you for joining us.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome. So we're definitely going to be talking a little bit through it. And part of the story that makes it interesting for me, and I talked to Chris a little bit beforehand, just so that we're all on the same page, is that it's not just the fact that he developed this thing. He's got a website that does Project 2020. I'm going to show you guys a little bit of that as well as we're talking as we go along. And the channel and the Project 2020 show on his channel has become a great resource. And by the way, also congratulations on getting back to work from the furlough.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. That was really good.
That one, extra congratulations on that one, obviously.
Yeah, thank you.
But necessity brought about, it was interesting because what I love is that, see, you got fans. I love it.
There you go.
Good times.
Yep. Hey.
Now, what I enjoy here is that you didn't just take the time off. Obviously, you're working on home projects and all that. And you mentioned that a little bit in your early vlogs. Yeah. But you basically created a daily vlog, which evolved. The evolution is what I think was great because you started off talking about some sports card topics and all that. That was great. But then at a certain point, and I likened it to when I was explaining to a buddy of mine, I likened it to like comic books. When you go to comic books, you got key issues where certain things happen. Well, if you go to the Furloughed series, April 13th is your starting issue. That was your first video. But then by episode 28 is the first mention of Project 2020. There's your key issue right there.
Yeah, there you go.
That one gets the ball rolling because that's the first time you bring it up in one of the videos. Yep. And then from there, by episode 37, it starts becoming like a Project 2020 show. It's the nascent Project 2020 show before the official Project 2020 show happens. So as you were going along, though, you were doing things. You were getting a little bit of traction. You had some subscribers and all that. Yeah. What was it that specifically struck you that you started to think, this Project 2020 thing, I kind of like it, and I'm kind of enjoying doing it?
So I think it kind of goes back to the original of why I have a furlough series. So when I was furloughed, I did the original series, and I didn't even know what a vlog was until probably like 60 days ago. I didn't understand the terminology. I just was like, I'm going to turn my video camera on. I'm going to record myself. So in 30 years, I can see how I reacted, how I went through this process, because it's such an unprecedented time in our lifetimes. And I'm never probably ever going to have until I'm retired a 3-month, 4-month vacation from work. And I might as well record it, do something, keep my mind sharp, and maybe teach myself a couple different things. And so that's where the Furloughed series came from. And you can go back to my first episode. I think it may have less than 100 views. I mean, as of right now. And so, I mean, it was just a process of that. But then as I was going through that, Furloughed series, I got more in tuned into Project 2020. And I missed the first 20, 30 cards, 40 cards. I knew it was out there, but I wasn't paying attention to it because to me it was another Topps Living or another art set. I'm like, I don't really understand it. And then I started realizing how much energy was behind it just from the community. And then I started just talking about it more. And then all of a sudden, I think you said around episode 35 or 36, I started doing back-to-back episodes around Project 2020. And then I went from having like 50 views on a video to like 400, like overnight. And I'm thinking, wow, there's something here. I don't know what it is, but there's something here. And when you listen to anyone on YouTube who has a very big channel, like we're talking like, 10, 20, 30, 100,000 subscribers, they always say niche down, right? Get down to what you can talk about. And that was sort of my pivot. It was like, wait a second, I've gone from 60 views on a video over a month to now 500 in 24 hours. I can't ignore this. I don't know where it's going to go, but I'm going to go with it. And that's where I made that transition. So then when my first furlough was extended, because I was only going to be gone out of work through end of May. So it was originally going to be like a 49 episode series. But then that week before, I got furloughed for another, I think it was 2 months. I'm thinking, well, I can't keep talking about furloughed. Now it's run its course now. And with the Project 2020 success, I was like, let's just make it a full Project 2020 show. We'll see how it goes, and then we'll see where we end up with. And, I keep on my desk here, all of my original show notes, all these papers right here.
Nice.
And,
I like that.
one of them is my original show notes. It's right here. It's called, it says, you probably can't get it, but ending furloughed, starting Project 2020 show, stuff like that. So it was just sort of an idea, and I was like, let's see where it goes. And all of a sudden, overnight, it was just sort of, I don't say blew up, but I went from like 150 subscribers to like now I'm almost at 2,000. So
that's right, exactly. Yeah. But that's why I wanted to take a couple of minutes to talk about it, because I think it's a good message. Because an important thing that I sometimes mention that hopefully I have to repeat from time to time, because it's important people hear it. The hobby YouTube world is small. Like, people don't understand, even within the YouTube landscape, which is a niche, but then within it, you've got like the hobby niche, sports niche, whatever, sports cards and things like that. Like, the biggest sports card channels are maybe 30, 40,000 subscribers, the biggest. And we're talking like people who break boxes and stuff that people love to watch, all that. Yeah. Those are the biggest. We're not talking PewDiePie with 100 million subscribers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There's a big gap between like the biggest, the 800-pound gorilla here and the 800-pound gorilla in other genres.
Exactly.
So, but when you can find something that people are interested in and a couple of thousand people subscribe to it, that says something. That means you hit on a nerve. And Project 2020 for a while definitely was hitting on a nerve. And then also, I will also compliment you, because you didn't just take that and run with it. I watched throughout the course of the series, and I went back and watched some of the previous episodes to get kind of caught up and understand. And you were making adjustments all along the way. More music, less music. Yeah. I'll do it this way. I'll do it that way. But you were taking the feedback and you were tweaking and tweaking to clean it up and make it look a little bit better as you went along. Yeah,
the music, you mentioned that. If anyone who was around from Furloughed, the music was a big issue when it came to, because when I was first doing Furloughed, I didn't know anything about video editing. All I saw was what I saw on YouTube, and I thought, well, music, I can cut scenes and in and out of scenes with it. And by the time I made a video, I had like 15 music scenes, and then it got really quiet and stuff like that. So it's been an evolution, because at the same time, I want the feedback. What do you want to listen to? What are you watching? But then at the same time, I need to learn how to edit better, make better videos. And then eventually I bought a better camera. So you go from like, I think episode 30 or 32, I used my new camera, and then that only improved the visuals and stuff like that. So
no, respect for that, because it's one of those things where I treat kind of the YouTube thing as like another hobby. And from that perspective, if you have that ability, it means, you know what, I like making things look a little bit better. Streams, you have to accept there's going to be video quality limitations. The platform right now, the platform lets me do 720p. But if I do my camera, I got 1080, and I've got another camera that does 4K. And like, you can have better quality. If I'm editing the video, I can control the quality a little bit better. But for this, it works because it's more live. It's more interactive. Plus you got to hold on to those notes. I don't know if you caught that, but they're going to be the Smithsonian someday.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know, but it's funny. Yeah, keep them to the side over there, just a reminder of.
Yeah, but I can relate.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
Yeah. I like to have my notes as well when I do a lot of these videos. I end up doing long talking head videos a lot, so it's one of those things where I can usually keep track of the track I'm going to, but I like having my points just so I understand where I'm going.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Absolutely. So that was good. I just wanted to chat a little bit about that. One more thing before we get into Project 2020, though, because it is a personal favorite of mine. I started off as a vintage baseball guy, and I'm still a vintage baseball guy because I enjoy it, but I collect a lot of hockey right now. Right now, with the current situation, mail cross-border is, I hope you're very patient.
Yeah.
I've had refund requests where I had to send things that way, and I've had to give refund requests where I try to be exceedingly patient, but I feel bad for them. But once it's like a month and a half, I'm like, I don't know if I'm actually going to get it.
Yeah, it's a little too long. Yeah, and I think people would be amazed to understand that I don't collect modern baseball cards. I don't even really, it's not that I find them boring. I don't find them entertaining. The only thing modern I collect are the Independence Day parallels from Flagship for the Mariners. Sure. Other than that, I'm pre-war. That's all I collect is T206s and T212s. And so this modern thing is what really, it surprised me that I liked it so much, because I just don't like modern cards that much, but I'm more pre-war. So it was a whole sort of like mind game with myself is how can I like these cards, although I don't really collect modern cards. So, but I'm right there with you, the vintage stuff.
But why specifically Polar Bear? Because there's a lot of backs to the T206 set, and they've got different aspects to them. I actually like the Polar Bear backs, and I saw the sign behind you as well, which I love those signs, by the way.
Yeah, so thank you. So the reason why it's simple, so it's the slogan. I mean, I don't know if I get the focus here or not, but it's.
Yep, I can see there.
is now, always has been, always will be the best scrap tobacco. So the confidence of putting that on a brand in 1909, 1910, I just think it's phenomenal. I just think it's just a cool looking back overall with the blue. So that's why I prefer polar bears.
No, that's fair. And it's got a pretty good sizable checklist, because I know on your website, and actually we'll introduce your website, that we'll use this. It's a nice segue to go into it. We're going to focus predominantly on the Project 2020 piece, but I'm going to show everybody a little something here. Yeah. So let's do that. I'm just going to bring it over. There we go. So we got CRT Sports Cards. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger just so it's easier to see. There we go. Now, in addition, obviously, we got the little tab here for Project 2020. That's where I'm going to direct a lot of you where you want to check it out. The website, by the way, is a really great work. You've put in some very good information here. That's why I say, like, I was being sincere when we spoke earlier. Like, I've enjoyed the show, and I also like going to the website to get it, because I'm an analytical guy. I like looking at the data. So having it a resource like this is really handy for me.
I appreciate it.
One thing for the rest of you, if you want to check it out on your own time, he's also got a little spot for the T206 collection. So that's what kind of caught my eye, and I noticed that, and I was like, I'm just curious, why polar bear, But if you go down to the website here, that's why the reason I say it's really great is that you've got the information broken down, and we'll chat about a couple of these things that I think are going to be interesting. But one of the areas that I particularly like is you got the complete artist list here, where it nicely ranks everything. You got all the artists, you got all their cards, the print runs. So at a glance, if you just have a couple of minutes and you want to check out, okay, what are the Ermsies doing, or what are the Andrew Thiels doing? You've got all the different ones with card numbers, print runs, and their overall ranking based on the cards that are out today. So that's a lot of work. So great job by you maintaining it. So somebody's got to, and I don't want to. So
the good thing is all it was it's my Excel file all works together. So it's like 10 different tabs. And so all I have to do is input 2 numbers, and then the whole thing updates within 5. The hardest part on this is cutting out all the photos from Excel and then putting it on the website. But
yeah. And I think you draw, not this specifically, but I think you're, when you get to your pre-sales and things like that, I think you draw the information from Terapeak, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, all that's from Terapeak. Yes.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah. So I've had a couple of love-hate relationship with a couple of these artists, but Old Man Allen, that he frustrates some people, makes me laugh so hard. It's so enjoyable.
It's funny because if you think about a baseball card, that's what Old Man Allen's doing. Like Old Man Allen, if you look at all of his Instagram accounts, he does photos. That's what he does. And last time I checked, you can't go take a photo of Jackie Robinson or Ted Williams.
That's right.
He has to go find the best photo for what he's trying to portray. And it's the closest thing to a baseball card we have, like a short print, but yet people don't like it. So I just find that juxtaposition really weird when it comes to a baseball card of photos, that we don't like Old Man Allen in this set, in a sense.
I think I think he would have been able to kind of get away with it a little bit. And the thing is, it's weird because the one that I like from him is the Ted Williams.
That's a great card.
And the reason I like the Ted Williams, and I'll just explain it. I've got that one in one of these packages, so I'll make sure I grab it. Yeah. So I only grabbed 2 of each. I grabbed the Natural Koufax and the Ted Williams.
Yep.
Both of them I like. I'm in agreement with you. Natural is actually pretty good. I like some of the stuff that they do. But the reason why I like the Old Man Allen Ted Williams, and I'll explain it here from a vintage perspective. So hopefully you guys can see that a little bit. I actually think this is a better design than what 1954 Topps actually was. I'm not actually a big fan of 1954 Topps, but I love 56. And the thing about 56 is that you've got the big head picture, but you've also got kind of an action pose or whatever. If you think about this as if I told you this was 1954 Topps, it actually fits in line with the aesthetic of the era. It's actually perfectly, and then having the picture on the outside, actually, like, I feel like this is almost his best work. And the Koufax I like, but this one I like because it feels like what a 54 could have been had it been produced differently.
On that one, to me, it's the depth of the card. You look at it and you feel like you're on the field with Ted Williams, looking at him, watch the picture. And I thought it was a great card overall. That's when I really noticed Old Man Allen from a card perspective. I hadn't really gone to his Instagram account before, but once I looked at his Instagram and then saw the Ted Williams, then I figured out, okay, this is what he's trying to do. This is what he's trying to portray in these cards. And it made a lot of sense. So I like his artwork. I'm not collecting him, but I don't shudder at the dislike for him, but I think about it from the perspective of he takes photographs and that's what he does.
No, for sure. I think where you ended up, see, you got fans, but I think what hurt him is that on a lot of them, there's just kind of plain borders. Whereas in that 54 reimagining, I could actually imagine that being like an alternate version of 54 Topps. I think aesthetically it works. Where a lot of the other ones is like, all right, I'm just going to take a plain, off-white border and I'm going to slap a picture on here. Even if it's a really cool picture, it's like, well, it doesn't feel like you tried as hard.
Yeah. It's tough because, he's gotten better recently with explaining, like, to Jackie Robinson why he picked a certain photo. And if he had done that from the beginning, I think it would have been better received. But for a while there, for 2 or 3 months, he was just putting him out and really not talking about it. And that really kind of got people sort of trying to figure out, what is he really doing? Is he, as they say, stealing money from Topps? Because all he's doing is taking a photo from Getty, I think it is, and putting it on a card. But I like his recent work with his explanation of why he's doing what he's doing.
Absolutely. And this conversation, everybody, is part of the magic and the interest of Project 2020, is that we could do a breakdown and talk about the idea and concept behind almost every single artist, because there is a rationale, and either you like it or you don't. We were talking about it a little bit beforehand. I'm not a big fan of Ermsey, but can I respect the fact that he's definitely got an aesthetic and a design he's going for? Yeah, I can respect it. And some people like it and some people are not, but it's going to be polarizing. It's going to be that way. Now, I kind of want to segment into this way. Part of the reason why I reached out to you at this stage is that we're just past the halfway point. So I feel like that's a good milestone period. Now we have a lot of data. We're not short. We're not short of data here. We've got enough cards out there. We've had enough movement in the market, both up and down, that we can get a bit of a sense. And maybe, I guess, this way would be to look at it. Obviously, the Shore Griffey was a big turning point in the way that print runs went into where we're getting right now. Has anything surprised you in kind of the way it's played out so far in like the first half?
Surprised me? I think maybe the surprise came in, and this goes maybe, if I think backwards on this question, sure, is when we mentioned this earlier on the pre-show, in the hobby for so many years, we've always said, never sell what you don't have. Even if someone was selling a card from a break, which they were 3 days from getting, like, oh, that's really, you can't do that. You can't do that. And the fact that we as a community, and I did this, and thankfully I didn't do it a lot because I was a little worried that I was going to get burned in this, but we as a community started selling flips of flips of flips, and it all crashed down because we became okay with the fact that everyone was selling cards that were months away from being at our house. So maybe the instant greed factor that happened maybe surprised me the most, but in the moment it didn't really make sense, because that's why I put a video out way before my Project 2020 series where it was titled Flipping Project 2020 the Safe Way. And that was me talking about only flipping cards that were live. And at that moment, we were still not that far behind in shipping delays. And then after that, we just got way behind. But I think maybe that's what I was most surprised with, was just how much we kind of gave up on following the norms and went after the money, and then everything kind of crashed down shortly thereafter.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Wall Street movie where Gordon Gekko says the greed is good, and this is kind of a conversation that I had on my own time with some of my hobbyist friends, and I go, guys, greed will always rear its head at the moment when it happens. The reason why I found Project 2020 so fascinating is because I knew it was going. The context, and you watched my video, and I appreciate that. So hopefully you got a bit of understanding where my headspace was at a couple of months ago. I felt like it was going to be an interesting watch to see what happened with those print runs in response, and whether at some point the print runs would fall far enough that some of the prices would come back up, therefore creating a second wave of greed.
Yeah.
And it hasn't happened yet exactly, but the print runs have moved in that direction. So that's going to be kind of an interesting thing. So what I want to do is I want to shelve the production part, but since we already brought up the print run part, you already expressed in a recent video that the print runs are starting to come down. We've hit a couple in the 2000s now. Yeah. And it's been a while since we did that. And that makes it really interesting because you were looking at, and that's why I say, like, I appreciate your show because you're taking an analytical look at a lot of the stuff. But part of it is also the last time there were consistently cards in the 2000s was some time ago. Yeah. But now the new ones might have an impact. And if you want, you can elaborate on this. It might have an impact on the price of the old ones in the 2000 range.
Yeah, so a couple things here from my perspective. Number one, on the print runs, I think the question we've always had from Project 2020, even back with Shore and Vitas coming out with Ryan and Griffey, was what is the collector base? Like, what can the economy of Project 20 withstand?
That's right.
And we were always trying to figure that number out. And at the beginning, the collector base was greater than the supply. We're talking print runs of 1,100, 1,200, good in back, I think, is 1065. I'm correct here. It was very, very low. So there's more demand than supply there. What we're seeing right now is the collector base. This is the collector base. The collector base is right around 2,500, 3,000 for a card. And so the only way, in my opinion, that these cards are going to be able to go up in value as they once were, and I don't hope they go up to where they were. Now, maybe I want them to go up that high, but I want them to go up I want them to go up gradually. I mean, if you look at my sales chart on my website, it's like way up and way down like the next day. And that's where we can't have that anymore. So I want that gradual incline. So in 3 months, if more people come into the set, we will see these current cards, I think, gain steam like the other ones. But if no new fans come in, I don't think the set grows anywhere to where it was in the short term. I think it's going to be a couple of years from now when it comes to, will this set be, will it hold value long term? So I think it's all about the collector base right now.
No, that absolutely makes sense. And that was, so I just wanted to show everybody the chart you were kind of referring to here. And you can see that gigantic spike here. This was about the May point. And right here, like, you can see the magic of the short Griffey, because this is around the time point where this happened. And then we see this almost immediate thing. Now, there have been some peaks back up here and there, but it's just been interesting to kind of observe. And it has played out. I guess the best way to put it is in part of the conversations that I've had with some hobbyist friends is that, because they were asking me at that time kind of what I thought about it, and I try to stick to really analytical observations. I try not to, project too far. But what I came to was the laws of supply and demand have not been violated. They're still in effect. It's just we're looking at pre-orders. We're looking at a bunch of different factors that are all coming together, and some people are buying 10 copies when really they didn't want 10 copies, but they were hoping they could flip 9 copies. And once that became less incentivized because the prices came down, all of a sudden we retreated back to a more realistic base, which is what you're referring to.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
You could, up to card 65, 66, you could take a 10-pack, sell 5, cover your cost, and then hold the other 4 and see what happens. But then everybody did that, and then everyone bought 100, 200, 300, thinking they were going to buy a house on this money, and then it all just imploded in a sense. Yeah,
one of my favorite threads. I don't post on Blowout, but do I read Blowout? Yeah, you're damn right I read it. Yeah. And the Project 2020 thread was its own adventure, just watching it, the waves. I spent many hours just scrolling through it and going like, oh my God, these people. But one of the fun parts was there was a gentleman who was posting like this big Project 2020 collection that surpassed like $1 million. And this number kept moving and moving until suddenly he stopped posting around the time it started coming back down. So like on paper, he was a millionaire from Project 2020, but it's like, well, great. It's fine. If you sell it and get that $1 million, well, then yes, you can buy that nice house.
Yeah, of course. I mean, at one time, the Matt Taylor, Frank Thomas with an 8,000 print run was selling for like $75. And that was, a good week or two after Griffey Shore. And that's what sort of gave us this false sense of confidence that we thought that 8,000 was a small number, which it was at the time. But now in the grand scheme of things, 8,800 is just below the average print run for the set. So we all sort of clouded our minds with all these dollars, and we all made some bad decisions at the time. And now here we are.
Absolutely. Now, I think what's going to be interesting and where this kind of plays into it is that we've got these, I kind of identify 3 factors. Volatility is one, obviously, the movements of the market. The second one was Topps' distribution issues, we'll call them. We'll just call them generally distribution issues. Either getting the cards to you, having enough magnetic holders, sending it out in these, snap tights, basically doing whatever they could just to get product out the door, quality control issues, all of it. And we talked about it a little bit beforehand. And like when I talk about these things, I'm in Canada, so obviously international shipping is going to take longer. It's a pandemic. There's issues with the border. I get it. I tend to be very patient. I ordered these on May the 26th. I ordered these from Topps at the time that I could order them from Topps. They showed up about a week ago. We're in the middle of August.
Yeah.
And they owe me 5 more shipments that I got emails for weeks ago. And it's like, we'll see. It's probably in New York, New Jersey for another couple of weeks. But that, of course, would have had a slow down effect as well, because after a while, some people that are buying a bunch of them are going to be like, I'm not going to keep sending you money, Topps.
Correct.
And that is going to mess things up, I would think. But the third element, so distribution problems is one, the actual volatility of the market is a second problem. But then the third problem is also going to be, now that the resellers have been sufficiently burned, I think they would be discouraged from even attempting pre-orders again because of all the ability of people to just refund. They can refund for a very long time. So you can be sitting there going like, look, I'm trying to get product. And we've had, even if your communication is good, if your communication is bad, it's more problematic.
Or no communication.
Correct. But even if it's good, buyers are only going to have so much patience. They're in the same boat. So it's like, it's from Topps, it's one thing. I can go yell at Topps. but just a third-party buyer, maybe if I'm going to bother and I'm going to have to wait anyway, then I might as well buy it from the source.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the challenge is that some of the eBay presellers were not being proactive with their customers. They were trying to let Topps do the communicating. It's like, look, that customer bought from you, you've got to communicate it. And even in one of my videos, I even mentioned it. Look, you got to go communicate with your buyers, because you got to let them know what's going on to keep them at bay. Because if you don't, they're going to hit you with returns and cancellation requests, and we don't want that to happen. So yeah, I think if you're pre-selling on Topps or pre-selling on eBay for these Topps cards, you have to be proactive. You cannot let Topps communicate for you, or you are just going to get burned at the end of the day.
No, that's completely fair. And I think all three things play a role in it. But all three things basically douse cold water onto these print runs, because at a certain point, people aren't going to have the patience. They're going to be like, you know what? I think there's plenty of them out there. I'll go buy them in the secondary market. And that was where I had my fun. I had to have my chuckle and pick this guy up. And the thing is, I think I paid $13 Canadian for it. So take off about 30%. There's your American price. It costs a little bit less than it cost from Topps, and that included shipping. So the person took a bath. And I feel bad for him on the one sense, but on the other hand, I got one copy just to have a good chuckle on my side.
Yeah.
And you know what? It shipped a heck of a lot quicker than it would have if I had waited for Topps to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the fourth one there, if you want to talk about volatility, when you start thinking about the shipping delays, and then when the cards were slowly trickling in, they were all worth under MSRP of like $15, $16. So it's like, why would I go buy these on Topps.com for $20 when I can wait a month from now and get it for $12 or $10? I mean, I think the Mike Trout, Blake Jameson selling for like $7. No, I get it. It's 75. There's 75,000 cards out there of that. So that's an enormous amount of cards. But why would I go spend $20 on any Mike Trout card right now when I can get it for less than that in a few months?
No, that sounds fair. And I tend to agree. It kind of is the opposite side of the greed thing, because as a customer, I'm like, I want the best possible deal. So maybe if I'm willing to wait a little bit longer, then maybe I can get a little bit of a deal. I lose on the opportunity to get on a couple of the because you can get is it the one of ones or
the gold one of ones are ones randomly inserted in every package or every release.
Yeah. So sup, Chris?
What's up, Mitch? He comments on all the videos, so thank you so much.
Perfect. Awesome. So it's but no, you're 100% right. And it's one of those things where like I don't blame the consumer. Here's the thing. I don't blame the consumer, and I don't really blame the seller for seeing, dollar signs off into this. For a little while, it was like mining gold. I use the analogy of the actual gold rush. If you were early, you got the gold. Yeah. If you were later on, they sold you the pickaxes and they sold you the it's like you're getting nothing because the gold's been picked. It's been picked clean. And I don't blame anybody, but at the same time, it was so predictable that it's like, no, you had to be first to market is going to win this game. Yeah. And that's how it's played out. But in the sense of, so all these factors we've outlined though, have brought the print runs down. Do we have much more room to go? Because we're still talking about 200 more cards. So even if you're a player collector, maybe you'll stick it out, to finish your player run. If you're an artist collector, you love certain artists, maybe you'll stick it out to do that run. But if you're one of those bold folks that have the dream of the 400 card set, does fatigue kick in with other options? Because now we're starting to get a trickle in of some actual cards from other products. And if I have X amount of hobby dollars, well, best case scenario, I give it to Topps and maybe they finally catch up and maybe I get into a reasonable time period, or I could buy, an overpriced box of Chronicles.
Yeah.
Have we I feel like there's more room for a floor, but the question is, does fatigue then also push those print runs back down?
I think fatigue is already here. Fatigue has been in place now for, I think, probably a month. And I was saying, a month ago plus, look, August is going to be rough. Even July could be rough. But I thought it was going to be because everything's open back up again. Sports are now, we're going to sporting events. I thought it'd be for a different reason. But now it's all kind of shifted gears a little bit. But yeah, fatigue is here. You're seeing people like in the Facebook group shift away from the set or sell their extras. I really think you're seeing people really hammer home and get down to what they really want to collect. No more. They're not picking up extra cards just to have them. Like I'm only buying now 2 players and 4 artists. Everything else I don't really care about from a buying perspective. They're all cool cards, but I don't want any more. I don't want anything else but I'm not collecting. 30 days ago, 2 months ago, I was buying everything. Now I'm like, I don't want it. So I think fatigue is there. And so could it bring it down a little bit? Yeah, but I still think with the amount of collector base that's out there right now, I think getting under 2,000 is very, very difficult. I mean, that's not that many. When you think about the print run overall, I mean, 3,000 is still, it's not a lot, but it's some out there. But I still think getting under 2,000 is difficult.
That'll be interesting because that's the real question. So Zach apparently is building floor sets. Kudos to you. Godspeed with almost 200 left. So I applaud you for giving it a go. It is kind of an Everest climb to hang in there for 200 more cards. Well, it's a little less than 200, but right there about.
The next 80 are key. If you can make it to 300, then you can see the finish line. But if you're fatigued right now and burned out, I think you're not going to make it to the end. It's just too big of a set.
Exactly. And that's kind of what I was thinking of, is that I think it was a cool idea, but it's almost like you can only keep throwing out, even if you do it like in volume, you're talking, I think it's like $15 if you buy enough volume.
Correct.
Per card.
It's 165 or something like that, or 150 for 10. Yeah.
Yeah. So even at $16 a card, after a while, it's still fair, but it gets tricky after a while. And then contributing to that, because if you were a super fan, a super collector, you also had the companion cards. You also had the associated thing. Like, in a way, I understood why the artist did it. I'm not blaming them for it. Like, I totally get it. But in their own way, they kind of contributed to the fatigue. It's like, you can only suck out so many dollars from me in a short span of time before I run out of dollars.
Yeah.
So it's do you think though that maybe the companion cards in the lengths that a lot of the artists went to add, like their autograph version of the card and all these other ones, maybe was too much too soon from too many of them at the same time?
No, I don't blame the artist here for that. I like the companion card for Natural. I'm picking up the JK5 ones. Where I think the fatigue set in on those was with us. Everybody saw them as a flip opportunity. And then everyone bought them up when they were limited. Like Tyson Beck's first autographs were very low numbered and very inexpensive. And now the artists, because he sold out so quickly, they then increased production to meet the demand. But then people were buying them to try to resell, and now they're selling for less than what they paid for. I mean, like the Blake Jamieson Mike Trout autograph at a $249 was $250 on his website. They're selling for like $150. So back to your greed comment, to me, the greed of this is what really drove the desire for these down, because they were only trying to flip them. They were never trying to collect them. And when you look at like the new issue with the JK5 box, I don't think it's a real big issue, but people are up in arms about the different changing of box. It's because, to me, they were trying to flip it in the future. They were not trying to collect it. If you're trying to collect the set, because that's where we are right now, it's a collector set, I don't think you have an issue with any of it. But too many people were trying to flip this, and everyone, even on the autographs, companion cards, and it didn't work out. It set into more fatigue that way.
No, I think they're all factors. It's one of the, like, fatigue is fatigue, right?
Yeah.
Basically, I think what I'm alluding to is, like, is there a level beyond fatigue? Is there like collector drop dead? We've surpassed fatigue into like another level.
I mean, there are people out there who are dropping out completely, and I think it's because they overextend themselves. I mean, you think about it, 10 cards a week for 9 months, that's a massive investment. I mean, that's a lot of money. And if you're not, and a lot of us in the hobby at times we'll buy boxes or cases and open them and flip and got money rotating. If you're collecting a 9-month set, I mean, that you're going to be sitting on these cards forever. So you don't have that money rolling in. So you are going to tap out eventually. So if you're not making the right purchases, you are going to drop out because you're out of money.
No, that's completely, I think it's an agreement. So let me quickly acknowledge the folks here. Thank you, Jose. Much appreciated.
Yes.
Absolutely. Now, I think this Jose also hits on a point here that I think is a good one that kind of segues me into kind of the other thing that I'm thinking, because he goes, thinks the majority of flippers are out now. He sees Project 2020 as a long-term hold. This is where it gets interesting, because I don't fundamentally disagree, but I think there's two prevailing theories, right? So there's like scenario one where that fatigue kicks in, some of those late print runs come down, and maybe long-term that makes it really interesting. Because if we do find that floor again, like the real floor, the absolute floor, and we're just down to Zach's 4 sets, and that's the only 4 sets that exist because it's the last one. If that's the case, well, then there's going to be some long-term, maybe not for every card, I think this one, I may get 1350 in 5 or 6 years, maybe, but for the majority of the cards, maybe not, but for certain specific pieces, some of the early ones, the Ichiro, the number 1, stuff like that, there may be some, long-term hold, especially for fans.
Yeah, I think you break it up into 2 segments here. A complete set is always going to be worth more money, right? But the demand for that's going to be very limited, because how many collectors out there are going to have the funds for a 400 card card set. But what's going to be where the demand's going to be is these 20 card artist and player sets. So if you want to go after an artist and you want to go after a player, to me, that's where the demand's going to be long term. So when you think about long term hold, that's what I'm putting together is artist sets and player sets. And look, I never knew who Grotesque was, who Natural was, who JK5 was before all this, but I absolutely love their cards. That doesn't mean in 3 years from now, if those are worth $5,000, that I'm not going to sell them. I'm not sort of holding back because I like these people before I met them. I never knew who they were before this. So yeah, there's some long-term hold. But I think the demand's going to be on the 20 card set versus the 400 card set.
I think that's fair. I think that's reasonable. My personal favorite that I got a kick out of is our good friend Fucci. The whole no face thing is really it's been unintentional comedy with a couple of my friends and I. We just but then I sent him on to Fucci's website, and that's where I got the laugh. Yeah,
I had to put him on my website. I had to put that not safe for work link because his artwork is not good for work. So
that's exactly it. If you're not ready, few people are actually fully ready for the full Fucci experience.
Exactly, of course. And then I love Fucci because his whole thing is being anonymous, and that's why there's no faces. And now, yes, we have Nolan Ryan with like an eye. I called it the Wilson card from Home Improvement, but I mean that's his whole stick is being anonymous and not putting faces on a card. So I think it's a really cool feature, and I think Topps did a great job putting together all of these artists from different aspects. But yeah, Fucci's one who were, when you first saw the Ripken, I think he was, you're like, what is this? Like what? And then the other ones came out afterwards.
Absolutely. I fully agree with that. So let me acknowledge a couple of the folks here. So let's go in here. So this is Jeremy from Sports Card Live. I was mentioning a little earlier. So I want to, actually, I'll take the opportunity. Jeremy's going to be doing a live stream later on. So at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, he's going to be chatting, and I'll actually show everybody just so we can all see it. So let me go over here. Make a little adjustment. There we go. So I just want to show everybody just so you can all see. Let's take Jeremy's comment off. So this is actually Jeremy's YouTube channel, Sports Card Live. So here it is. He's dangerously close to 1,000 subscribers, folks. Come on, 992.
Come on, 8 people.
We're right there. Plus, if you need any confirmation that Jeremy knows what he's talking about, just look right here. You got CRT Sportscard right here, and you got my channel right here. So the man has impeccable taste in YouTube channels. See, Jeremy, I can plug your thing and plug myself at the same time. Absolutely. But yeah, I actually showed that to Chris earlier, and he didn't realize that we were there right back to back on some of your favorite channels. But no, Jeremy does put on a fantastic show. He's interviewed some big time hitters. He's had Beckett on there. He's had folks from Upper Deck. He's had folks from Panini. Like, if you're interested in checking out some hobby insiders, he's definitely got some on there. Yep. And tonight it's going to be Tony Sirianni from Upper Deck Product Managers. He's going to be talking about product, how they basically put together a set and things like that. Okay. And on Wednesday, he had Ken Golden from Golden Auctions, who's done some of the big auctions recently, including like the LeBron James $1.8 million. And there's a Mike Trout Superfractor that's on for auction. That's Golden Auctions. And they had a nice chat where Golden actually walked around his house while they were having a conversation, and then showed off some really cool cards on the live chat. Oh, wow. So it's quite the interactive experience if you want to check it out. That'll be at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time later on. So there you go. One more after here I'll do real quick. So Ryan, good afternoon.
Hey, Ryan.
Want to incorporate the folks where we can. Yeah. But I think so we talked about one potential angle. To your point, some folks are going to be looking at long-term, maybe the player sets or the artist sets, or, and some folks are really going to go for the Everest. They're going to go for the 400 card set, which is going to be spectacular when it's finished. It's going to be very impressive. And I'd love to see the pictures when somebody can show that it's done. That'll be kind of cool. But I think what'll be interesting for me is going back to the greed theme that I like to hit on is a Topps executive sits there and goes, guys, Project 2020 did pretty good for us financially. Sure, we had some logistical problems, but if we can get that figured out, Project 2021, Project 2022, Project 2023, and I think that would have a big time impact on Project 2020, especially not for necessarily the rarest ones, but for some of the other stuff. I think it would hurt it to have something like that so soon.
Yeah, and Jeff, who is the director of this, said on Blake, he was interviewed by Blake Jameson a month or two ago. He said, as long as I'm the director of this, there's not going to be a Project 21. Now, it doesn't really make sense mathematically, or you can take 21 by 21. It doesn't make any sense. I get it from the perspective of this made them a ton of money, but can they catch lightning in a bottle again? I don't think we have the attention span or the thirst to go do this again this time next year. Maybe in 3 or 4 years, maybe Project 2025, that could make more sense. But I would think Topps would be kicking themselves or shooting themselves in their own foot if they made this happen again next year.
No, I think your point is very valid. I think it's totally valid. My concern is that I'm wondering if going back, like I said, going back to greed. Hey, Brian,
Mhm.
going back to greed. My concern is always yes. I think you said it was Jeff, right, from Top Tops.
Heckman or something like that. Yeah, I
That's
think
right.
yeah.
Yeah, my concern is that basically we replace Jeff and then we do Project 2021 anyway.
That's right.
Jeff will have to do his own furloughed series. Yeah, but except his furlough will be permanent until he gets himself another job.
Exactly.
But I feel bad because I struggle to see a scenario where at some point he could have that stance, and I think he's sincere, because I think most of the people at the trading card company are smart enough to know you don't kill the golden goose, don't strangle it, don't beat it up, try to maintain it, try to sustain it. But history tells us every single time they eventually kill the golden goose. And I used the example in the pre-show. I talked about, remember when jersey cards were a thing, when they were actually a novel thing. And then they were in every box. And then they were a couple per box. And then you had products where you had them one per pack. They can't help themselves. You had to have known that, hey, guys, if we do this, we're eventually going to have you run through so many jerseys. We're not going to have game used. Oh, don't worry. We'll use player worn.
Yeah. And they will do Mark Ingram with 50 jerseys on at one time. So, yeah, I get it. Yeah.
And the thing is, so like I said, I'm not trying to be cynical, but history is on my side on this one. Like, I've got a lot of history.
I mean, it makes sense. I just don't know. I would like to see Topps take these artists or who want to do more cards. Like Tyson Beck, for example, is in Topps Fire, but no one probably knew that until this year with Tyson Beck having cards in Project 2020. Mm-hmm. How does Topps take some of the bigger artists, the Blake Jameson, right, Tyson Beck? How do they make their own brand? How do they sort of take these artists, and move forward with them? Because look, I like Grotesque the most, but he's not really out there in the hobby communicating. He's doing Instagram postings like that. He's the lowest printed artist. I don't think people are going to go back next year and buy Grotesque cards again. But something like a Blake Jameson, who they've all become attached to, how do you take that golden goose and run with it versus trying to replicate Project 2020 again? Take these artists and run with them versus the cards.
No, I think that's good. I think that makes sense. I'm curious though if that's the case, because I think it's a good idea, and I think you're making a very valid point, because the artists themselves can be a brand, almost like that Topps can utilize. Now, I think I only got a chance to catch a little bit of it right now. I think there's a Ben Baller X Topps product that they've developed.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think in that vein of kind of what you're thinking, maybe down the road, not too distant future, a Blake Jameson X Topps or, something like that. And they could incorporate the artists into some different set. But again, I'm back to my original thesis, is that I don't want to see like 5 or 6, artists X Topps sets per year. And that becomes like a regular feature.
Yeah, you want to do it different ways, but the one thing where I could see them doing it again is by going after the teams that were not included on the first time. I mean, look, there's what, 2 Yankees, 2 Mariners. There's a lot of teams not represented in the set, so I could see them doing it. But I want them to take the artist, make the artist bigger. Don't worry about leave Project 2020 as it is. Don't try to make it different or better next year. Go do something different. But yeah, to your point, we don't need Topps Chrome X by Blake Jameson and Ben Baller and Natural. We just need Ben Baller and see how it goes and go from there.
Off in the distance, see, you mentioned Chrome, but now off in the distance, Ben Baller's like, wait, you have Chrome?
Yeah.
I can have refractors and I can have I can have a sapphire.
Yeah, exactly. I know.
Like that, I feel like that's right in his brand. Right.
Yeah, it very much is. So
yeah, it's fair. I'm in general agreement with you. When I look at it, I envision so many ways that someone over at Topps could be like, guys, I've come up with a bunch of ways to make more money. It's like,
hire Jeff #1 so we can make this next year.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, Jeff, you're out. You're done.
Yeah. And I made a video up maybe even before my furlough series, maybe before my Project 2020 series, where I liken this to Topps Living, where it's like, that's just boring because it's every single year. And it's just the same thing. There's no difference to it. And that's why it's not what it is anymore. So I just think they can't do it again. I mean, I'm not Topps. I don't speak for them. I'd never talked to them ever. So I just hope they don't do it at the end of the day. I want these cards to mature. I want to see where this set goes in 2 years. And if they sort of cut it off and they do it again next year, we're not going to give these cards room to grow because we're on to the next thing all of a sudden.
Yeah, I think that's always the danger. And I'll take the view that I'll be curious. It'll be kind of a wait and see approach, because I just can't see them resisting the temptation. To your point about Topps Living, the thing about Topps Living is that I like Topps Living. I don't need every card from it. And the 53 Topps set is one of my favorites.
Mhm.
56 tops is my absolute favorite all time, but 53 is right behind it, absolutely behind it.
Yeah.
I did a top 10 of my favorite cards in my collection. The number one card was the 53 tops Mantle. Now,
Gotcha.
I love that card. I love that series. I think it's fantastic. But you took a concept that 53 tops worked because you didn't see it every year. You had a 54 tops, a 55. You came up with other versions. After 56, I care a little bit less. But the point is that you had a different, because at that time they were competing with somebody, so they were forced to innovate. They couldn't just keep throwing out the same stuff, because otherwise, couldn't you have produced a 52 top set every year? You could have, but it would have made it less special. And I think that's kind of the point that you're trying to get across. Don't render it less special by bringing another version of the same thing.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. I just really, really hope at the end of the day that next March we don't hear, oh, Project 21 is releasing March 3rd. Come buy your cards. You know what I mean? It's like, well, then here we go again. So
yeah, no, that's fair. It's going to be interesting because Topps is going a lot back into the vaults of different things, even in their own history. They re-released, 93 Finest. They came up with a re-release of that, which I thought was cool because it's been almost 30 years. So they gave it enough time where like bringing it in with new players is kind of cool, but it's another on-demand product. And Topps has been pivoting more and more to those on-demand products because, well, there's no middleman. So you can make all the money up front. And then the secondary market's a secondary market. Topps can't worry about that too much. It's not their business.
Yep.
That's fair.
Now, I would love to see them maybe next year come out with, a limited edition run of maybe 5x8s. Like Andrew Thiel, for example, is an artist I've never connected with. I don't really appreciate his artwork because it's too small. He does great artwork. They're so detailed, but I would love to have that card like a 5x8 or maybe even bigger than that. So maybe they could take some of these cards and blow them up, make them bigger, and maybe do something with that. But I just really hope there's no new set next year.
No, that's fair. I think it'll be interesting because the thing is, that's what they did with Archive, right? Like the artist, you can buy like the prints, like the large versions of it. And I do think, to your point, I feel like prints of some of the more interesting art pieces from Project 2020 could be a product in itself that they could market to some of the big fans and be like, hey guys, you want a big Fuji?
Exactly. Yeah.
If it's the right one, I'd probably buy it just for the chuckles.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's fair. That sounds good. Let's kind of finish off on this because I think it's been a good conversation. I think we've hit on some of the big pieces. We've got the optimistic view, we've got the pessimistic view, and I think the truth will lie somewhere in the middle. Where do you see the legacy of Project 2020 at this point? Now, given that it's subject to change, we've got almost 200 cards left. More things can happen. Where do you see it? Like if I look at it in 5 years and I revisited this conversation, Chris, what do you think happened with Project 2020? How do we feel about it? What do you think we'd be talking about?
So I think you're going to talk about the moment cards, and there's a couple have happened so far on this set. And the first moment card for me was F. Dot's Dwight Gooden with the mask.
With the mask,
because when you look back at that card in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you're going to know why it was printed and when it was printed and the reason behind it. And you look at any modern 2020 baseball card, it doesn't mean anything. That card is going to mean something. And then you look at like Grotesque's Jackie Robinson from this week. That's another moment card in the set. When you talk about the social change happening in America right now, and basically maybe even the world, I don't know for sure, but I think that's what you're going to look back and go, this card was about this moment, and this card was about that moment, and those two cards to me are my top right now in the overall set. So I think these cards are going to speak about a time just like in the Spanish flu, 1918, 1917,
yeah, that's right.
Ago, like my T206 cards. Those cards survive not only the Spanish flu, but they're going to survive COVID. Project 2020 cards are going to survive COVID, and maybe in 100 years they'll survive something else. You never know. So I think long term this set's going to mean a lot, just because the times we're in are so unprecedented. None of us expected to be here in August right now.
No, I think that's completely fair. I think it's a reasonable approach because I do think, to your point, because certain pieces of art in the project have not a timelessness, but rather they speak to that specific moment in that moment, then that separates them. Because even if you did a Project 2021, the scenario may not be the same. So you're not going to recreate, you're not necessarily going to put the mask on because it might not be applicable the same way. It's not going to resonate the same manner. Yeah. And I think that's valid. I think to that point, that'll help those specific cards in the longer run to stand out because they'll have that story behind them when you look at them and go, oh yeah, this is what was going on at that time. And that's why it was done like this, as opposed to just like a straight up card.
Correct.
I think it's very valid. So let me hit on one more thing then with you here, and then I'll kind of put you on the hot seat for a second. I'm going to make you pick some favorites because we all got to do favorites.
Yeah.
But let's do this. One thing that I'm thinking about is that at the end of the day, like I said, market economics, we haven't violated. Nothing in Project 2020 or that we've seen has broken the rules. Supply and demand still applies. But one way you can kind of get around it a little bit, and I've started to see a little bit of it, but I'm curious what your take on it is. What do you think about grading the cards and people doing that to try to get the PSA 10 to kind of bring the population down relative to the actual population of what was produced?
Yeah. So I touched on this on a video of mine, and I think it's a big risk because you can't actually inspect the card unless you take it out of the holder. And I don't know how much a PSA 10 or BGS 10 Griffey Shore is going to get you, right?
Yep.
That's only like a $4 card. But I think taking an Ermsey Trout, taking a Beck Gooden, an Ichiro Baller out of the case is a gigantic risk. And when I looked at the numbers back then, the risk reward was just not there. My final theory was if you want a BGS 9.5 or PSA 10 set or player set or artist set, just shortcut it and go buy them when they're graded. Let somebody else take that risk. Don't do it yourself, because you could open that case up and have a massive surface scratch on an Ermsey Trout, and you just lost like $400 for maybe a $300 gain. Now, there were some prices now that have gone considerably up, so I've not looked at the prices recently, but I still think at the end of the day, it's a risk on the very early cards. Now, maybe on the current cards coming out, maybe there's some movement there. There's some you can make an argument to do that on these newer cards, but I don't look at pricing of cards until they're actually in hand, going back to what we talked about at the beginning. So I don't really have any concept of what these recent cards are selling for, because I don't really care about them, because I want them in hand before I say this card actually is worth 20, 30, 40 bucks.
I think that's fair. I think that's reasonable. I think to your point, I think the Ermsey Trout and all that is really going to be for the ballsiest people, the ones that really want to take a shot. Yeah. I think though there might be, this is something that I'm keeping an eye on because I'm interested in seeing what people are going to try to do, because there are going to be some people who are going to be sitting with stacks of them that are relatively inexpensive. To your point, the short Griffey might not be worth doing because it's not really worth the risk. But what about something in the middle? Maybe has like 5,000 or 6,000 cards where it's not like the biggest print run. It's not the smallest print. It's like it has value, but if somehow you can 2 or 3x the value, maybe it's worth a shot to take a stab at it. Kind of that middle tier card. Maybe that would be where some people would take a shot.
Yeah, and it's also challenging because you have to think about who's buying Project 2020. And the one thing that I've really come to understand doing my show and talking to people who've sent me emails and messages is how many old collectors are now back into the hobby because of this. And they're not really interested in graded cards. Who wants graded cards? A super modern fan, right? Who wants the Prism in a 10 or a refractor auto in a 10? It's this new modern fan. And I don't know right now if that collector base, crosses over at the moment. Maybe in a couple of years, if this set appreciates like it could, those could cross over. I just don't know if right now the fan base is really looking at graded cards as an avenue. It's more like a extra bonus in a sense. I don't know if you ask a new collector or someone returning to the hobby, what is a BGS 9.5? What color is the label? Are they going to know it's gold? I don't know if they will or not. That's just because they're coming back to the hobby because they saw a Ricky Henderson, redesign of the rookie card, or a Nolan Ryan or a Ted Williams, who they liked or saw as a kid growing up, and now they're back into this set specifically.
I think that's fair. I think that's wise. I will say though, so you're saying that the dream of the PSA 10 Fucci rookie card is still alive, Chris. You're not taking it away from me yet. There's still a chance.
No, they're still there. I think do it. If my recommendation at the end of the day was go, if you want a set, just go buy it. Just wait. Don't.
I get it.
Yeah.
I think, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I'll be interested to see. I'm just throwing it out there as a thought experiment to kind of get your take on it, because I do think some people are going to give it a shot. I definitely think some folks will try, and I would be genuinely curious to see what the first PSA 10, Ben Baller Ichiro would go for if somebody pulls it and makes it happen. Yeah. And I wonder, because especially if they could get like a Topps or a BGS to put like, first Ben Baller or first Fucci or like if you put that on the label in some way so that it's like maybe the first card for them in the series, that's their rookie card, so to speak.
And I've also seen people on the grading side, which I don't like in a sense, is they go the cheap route, which is they do the Project 2020 without subgrades with Beckett, and even that is a lower price versus a subgrade one. So if you are going to grade it, spend the extra money and do the subgrades, because that will get you more money at the end of the day. People want subgrades on BGS, you know.
I agree, because the thing is, you don't know, like, okay, maybe if it's a 9 and you have no subgrades, what is keeping it from being a 9.5?
Correct.
Where are we short? Because maybe I care about centering a lot. I can't tell, like, maybe from your pic. Obviously, centering, I could probably see it in the picture, but maybe if corners or edges or something's going on, like, show me that, because that's a useful piece of information for me to make a decision on what level of that it is. I think that's, I agree.
And I think at the end of the day, too, I mean, to your point, I mean, not Ermsy, but a ball or Ichiro right now is what, $1,800, and to open it out of the case, that's a risky move right now. So someone's got to take that risk, and I just would not. I don't want it to be me. I want it to be somebody else. So
I agree with that. Yeah, I want to see it. You know, so whoever's going to do it is going to be a baller, because they're going to give it a shot.
Yeah.
So I'll take 2 quick comments here from Jeremy, because I think he discussed something we talked about a little bit. So he mentioned here, Old Man Allen is growing on him because his portrayals, the only cards that probably look like traditional cards. I agree. We definitely, so you'll get a chance, Jeremy, later on. You can check it out. We did discuss that a little bit. You're right, though. Like I talked about the Ted Williams, Old Man Allen specifically, because I feel like it's the same as a 54 tops, like concept card, like if we had done that. And he looks at it as reminding him of the 53 Bowman color, which is valid, because they're color images that we're talking about, and we're not talking about the art. And I think if Old Man Allen, I don't know if he has any background in sports cards prior to this, but maybe if he had that influence, and maybe if he had led with that and be like, you know what, I'm going to be inspired by the 53 Bowman set, which Topps owns, so they own Bowman, 53 Bowman set, and that's kind of the aesthetic I'm going to go for these cards. I feel like he could have gotten away with that, because some baseball card purists would be like, yeah, we like that set.
Yeah,
and it's just a picture. Like at the end of the day, it's a picture with a border.
Yeah,
like he hit it.
Sneakers. That's what he does a lot. Now he has multiple Instagram accounts, but the one thing you see from him is it's all sneakers.
Absolutely, I think that's fair. All right, Chris. So we'll find. I think we're right at just about an hour. We've actually, I think we've hit a lot of some really good stuff. Is there anything that you feel like we've missed that maybe would be worth talking about for a little bit?
Not that I can think of. I mean, it's the rise and fall, and right now we're at a valley, and we're going to come through it at just fine. But you know, we got 4 months to go. I think at the end of the day, if you're in Project 2020, buy what you like. Don't chase the golden, don't chase that golden goose. It's not there right now. There's not a lot of money in it right now. Buy what you like, have fun with it. At the same time, if you're burned out right now, take a break. It's when you come back in a month, we're still going to be here, because they still have to do 200 cards almost. So don't feel like you have to be that greyhound, on the racetrack chasing the rabbit. Take a break, come back and enjoy it, because when you do that, you'll enjoy the cards more, because the set is so massive and it takes so many months to put together.
I think what you just said there is very valid, but it's also valid for collecting in general. Because when we start up collecting anything new, or start collecting in the first place, we go in gangbusters. We go absolutely crazy. And on this channel, I talk about my collection of my favorite player. I collect Mike Modano cards. I've been collecting for 25 years, but sometimes people look at me, how could you collect one player for 25 years? I go, because I pace myself.
Yeah,
it is not physically possible if you maintain the same. Like when I first started collecting, I was like going after everything. Yeah. It is not possible. It is not sustainable. You will burn out.
Yeah,
you'll figure out what the post fatigue thing is that we talked about. You'll find it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's with any collecting pursuit. Your polar bears that you're working on, that's not like a 1 week project. You can't just go hit buy it nows on eBay. That's not going to work.
Yeah, that's a 5-year project at best. And I didn't buy any when I was furloughed, so I waited. I put that set to the side. But yeah, it's going to take me many years, maybe even 10 years to put it together, and it's only a 250 card set.
But I think it's awesome to have projects like that, though. I love being able to look forward to working on it over a period of time. If it ends in like a week, well, then where's the fun in that? If I can go on eBay and hit buy it nows and get everything, like that's there's no joy to that for me.
No, it means you have the most money, and that's all it is.
Yeah, it's very tough. And I got a couple of excellent questions here. This is actually really good here. So this one is for you, Chris. So this is from Garrett Card Cutter. Garrett, thanks for coming by. So was there any backlash to you after talking about Twins, Jake?
No. So there was, but it was very minor. There were a couple people who reached out to me on Facebook and Twitter and basically said, what you did was wrong. But I think if you really look at what I said, it was he just needs to communicate with us. He needs to communicate with where he's at with shipping. And so, but overall, the response was very positive. And I only talked about it because I was receiving countless emails asking, what do you know about Twins Jake? And I shouldn't be the guy who should be asked about Twins Jake. It should be Twins Jake. But no, overall, it was probably 98% positive, 2% negative. And the people who were who were negative on it were supporters of Twins Jake or people who were selling his card to the Facebook group, something like that. So
yeah. I think it's good to hear that for the most part the feedback was positive, because I think you were sending a good message. I think you were advocating for the consumer on this, because it's like, it's not fair that there's no communication. You gotta talk to people, because even if there's an issue, if you talk to nobody, well, then they're just going to assume the worst. They're going to assume you're stealing our money, or you're giving us the runaround or whatever. Nobody likes that. Nobody feels good when that's experience they're getting from a business.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So Garrett thinks you did it the right way. I'm in full agreement with that. Absolutely. I like this real here. Quick Jose is like, he's like in JK5 now that he's got a couple in hand. There's a lot of detail to JK5. I think he did the Cyclops trout, like with the lasers.
Yeah, that, and JK5 is an artist. When you think about gaining this set gaining, if you think about this set gaining steam in the future, getting cards in hand, this is an artist that you can't appreciate until you have the cards in hand. When I got his Mariano in hand and his Ricky Henderson, I'm like, these are amazing. The detail is just superb, and you can't see it on the screen. You can see it, but you can't appreciate it. But yeah, JK5 is an artist who first came out, I was not sure of, and now I'm collecting his entire set because the cards are so great in hand.
Absolutely. And Jose here agrees with the approach you took as far as the Twins, Jake. Like, I think the feedback on the whole has been positive. But are you sure, Chris, you're not the personal representative? We should be asking all our Project 2020 questions directly to you.
Yeah,
sure?
No, we just, and I try to portray it. I wasn't trying to drive people to drive returns from him or charge back. It was just, hey, we are owed a response. And look, he responded. Was it because of the video? I don't know. I didn't talk to him. I presume it is because of the video. But now we just need more. Continue to update us. Be proactive with where you are with shipping and go from there. We understand everyone is behind on shipping. That's just where we are. But you just got to communicate. And if you're a small business owner, communication's key, and just communicate with your customers.
100% correct. Absolutely. That's just good policy in anything, whether you're small time or big time. That little piece of communication is going to be the difference between people giving you the benefit of the doubt and giving you some room to be able to do what you need to do, and then coming down on you and constantly badgering you and doing all that, which I'm sure he didn't appreciate. But at the same time, you brought it on yourself a little bit by not being forthcoming and not like be out in front of it.
Yeah, and I was doing pre-sales up through week 12 of Project 2020, and I would expect that if I had just stopped communicating for a month, that people would have been hounding me for communication, and I would expect to get called out. So I just think it wasn't anything negative. It was just like, hey, we, the community, when I said at the beginning of the video, I never wanted to be the person who was really talking about this as a whole. Right? I never wanted to be the spokesperson for 2020, but that's just kind of what happened on YouTube in a sense. And so that's why I used the platform to talk about it. And we got a response, but now are we going to see more? That's what I hope for. I really hope we see weekly updates going forward.
Absolutely. I think it's good, though, that you built a platform. It's what we talked about earlier in the conversation. You weren't planning at it. The furloughed series wasn't intended to shift into Project 20, but once it did, something happened. Like Garrett here says it correctly. I feel like you became the face of Project 2020. It's true, but it's and I think it sucks not having daily videos. And I agree. But at the same time, again, congratulations on getting back to doing what you do. Unfortunately, the YouTube thing doesn't pay any of us enough. I don't think we're not quitting our day job on this thing.
Exactly. Not when I'm at 2,000 subscribers. So I may have 20,000, different story. But 2,000, not so much. So
absolutely. But no, you did use the platform, I think, in an effective way, which I think was it's the whole point of having a platform is when you do get a chance to talk to people, even if you didn't think you had one, even something small. Our conversation right now, there's been about 15, 20 people watching during the time. We've been interacting with some of them. Guess what? Those 15 and 20 people are listening to what we have to say. And if we give good information, well, then great. That disseminates out. When they talk to other collectors and other things, that goes outward. So the impact can start small and get pretty big. And when you actually have a platform, it's good because then it can reach the right people, even if they're not the first one to hear it.
Of course. And when you think back to my original Furloughed series, and one thing that I use the word dislike here, but one thing that I want to stress to everyone is I never asked anyone, hey, should I do this? Should I put out a Furloughed series? I just did it. If you want to do it, just go do it. You don't know what's going to happen with the series, whatever you do. Just put it out. And if no one watches, no one watches. Who cares? And I didn't really care at the time if anyone watched, because it was for me to look back in 30 years and 40 years ago. That's what I looked like and sounded like when I was 37 years old during COVID. That's what I was looking for. And this is what came of it. But at the time, my goal was really look back when I'm 65, not 40 in a sense, in a couple of years. So, just go put it out, put content out there. And if it sticks, it sticks. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But go learn something in that time period.
No, that's completely fair. And I think when you mentioned that, I was like, it's like, well, unfortunately, I can relate to you more than I thought. I turned 37 in July, so I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm 100% on board with you here.
We might have the same birthday because I'm born early in July.
Middle of July, July 12th.
Okay, I'm 3rd. So
there you go. So you got a couple of days on me.
Exactly.
But
there you go.
we're right in the same neighborhood. We're right in the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But no, I think that's a really good message, though, to kind of conclude this on, because you're 100% bang on. This whole thing has been an opportunity. I've been making videos about sports cars only since like the end of 2018, but I've kind of done it my way that I wanted to do it. The live stream thing is recent because I was like, well, I like this format. I like long form. I could talk for hours by myself, but it's more interesting when I talk to another human being. It's probably a little bit more interactive, a little bit better. But if there's value to it, I don't want to just talk to anybody and everybody in creation, but if there's an opportunity for there to be some value for folks, then here, we'll do it this way. Is it perfect? Not necessarily, but I think there's some value to it, especially if you can talk about things that people are interested in. And clearly, Project 2020 hit a nerve as you experienced yourself.
Yeah, and it was the perfect timing because right around when my show started being Project 2020 was when the market kind of imploded. And if you go back to your original video on May 28th, you were talking about how many channels were out there around Project 2020.
That's right.
Popped up. But that was because it was an investment back then, right? Everyone's making all this money on it. And the moment that the market crashed, everybody quit talking about it. I kind of felt like Forrest Gump with my boat, like everybody lost. And then I'm just sort of just chilling in the middle of the ocean. And here I am, 3 months later, and I was just having a show to have fun with it. So, it's really the up and down of YouTube with Project 2020. And that's what surprised me the most is how people are not really talking about Project 2020. Yet it's such a groundbreaking set when you really think about it in the long term, or in the big picture, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, well, that was kind of so we didn't end up there, but that's kind of what I was wondering. We were talking about the legacy looking at in 5 years, though. So Blake Jameson has kind of discussed it in kind of similar terms about, the potential historical impact of it as a groundbreaking set. So then I'm guessing based on that, you kind of in the same boat, you kind of agree with that general idea that this will be, assuming, Topps doesn't kill the golden goose and produce 2021, 2022, if it stands alone. Then do you feel like it has like a groundbreaking, like this will be like a historic set, not just certain cards?
I think it does because nothing has been done like this before. And there's nothing to fall back and go, well, this set did this a year later, and this set did that 2 years later. And the simple fact is it's now almost September. This set has been out for 6 months now, and we're still talking about it. You talk about Topps Chrome in 2 weeks after release, no one's talking about it. And this is so unprecedented. So that's why I think there is some long-term potential here with this set because it's such a different set, and it's always going to go back to Project 2020 in 2020 with COVID, with the lockdown, with everything else going on. This set came out. Where were you at when Project 2020 came out?
Absolutely. I'm in complete agreement with you. It's going to really come down to, but kind of to our overall point is, the ball is in Topps' court now.
Correct.
There's still time for this set to complete. And if they're able to resist the temptation to immediately run back to the idea again, if they can hold off, even if it's for 5 years, even if they can hold off, then it allows it enough room to breathe and allows it to gain the context where people can look at it in a historical way.
Yeah. I look at it from, I kind of joked, a few months back that, hey, when Card 400 comes out, I don't really have a show anymore. And I don't think that's the case. I really think that there's a lot of content down the road with Project 2020 as we go through 2021, not Project 2021. But if they bring out a 2021 set, it just cuts the head of the snake off, and it just kills the first set. So I think they have to give it room to grow. And I really think that I could put out a lot of content next year around this set. But if they put out a new set, I have to switch gears to that set, and now this set kind of gets lost in the shuffle.
Absolutely. So Gary here just mentions, along the vein of what you're talking about, nothing like this has ever happened, so there'll always be a place in the hobby. And I think that's true to a point, Garrett. We're kind of all aligned here. I think we're all concurring here. But it is gonna depend on if they immediately run back and do another one. That's gonna hurt it. To Chris's point. But let's say the worst case scenario plays out, Chris. Let's say they do throw out a Project 2021. Does this mean that there's like a concept? Maybe you discuss it, but maybe you do pivot to kind of a more general sports card show or something in that vein. What would you think you would do if they went that route?
I would go back. If they did 2021, I would go back to what I'm doing now. I absolutely love this set, and I can pivot to the new cards, the new content, new artists, no problem. That's really easy. I'm such a big fan. I'm a huge fanboy at the end of the day of this set, so I could easily make a series up Project 2021, and that'd be fine. I would love to do that, but I just think I think it'd be a mistake. But then again, I'm not running $1 billion company with Topps or $1 million company, so I don't know what they're doing financially. You know what I mean? So it might make sense for them to make it next year.
I think that's fair. So, as a fanboy, Chris, now it is the time.
Okay.
I got 2 questions for you. So first, we've got a little over 200 cards to work with here.
Okay.
So first, at this point in time, I think you've mentioned it before on your show. So at this point in time, where do you stand? What is the favorite artist right now at this point in time with the overall body of work at this stage?
It's Grotesque.
Grotesque is your number one for the artist.
Number one for a couple of different reasons. Now, the first reason is because I didn't understand the cards at first. So everyone watch the show. I'm a huge numbers person, so I love the number 3. And when I first saw his cards, on the sides were 3 lines. What I missed for like a month or two was it's actually like a creature holding up the picture, and the 3 lines are the fingers of the creature in a sense. But I like Grotesque cards overall from the aesthetic, and it just looks really, really cool.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I think I've struggled with it a little bit. I think I really like some of Theo's stuff. Yeah, because I do like the intricate design. To your point, though, it's hard on that small form factor to make out all the details. So it's one of those ones where I kind of go back and forth on it. I'm still debating a handful of them. I wouldn't collect a specific artist set, but there are certain ones that I've definitely appreciated their cards, some more than others.
And I like the artist sets the best because I get a touch of every player. Where with the player set, it's all the same player, but I like the artist sets because I get one of every player at the end of the day.
Absolutely, no, that's fair. So the second one, almost 200 cards to work with. Okay. What is your favorite card, single card, thus far in Project 2020?
It's the mask card, the Dwight Gooden by FDOT.
Okay.
Just because it means so much, and it talks about the moment that we were in when that card released. I mean, there's no other card in the set right now. Even as great as the Jackie Robinson is, and I'm a huge Jackie Robinson fan. Like my Mariners jersey has 42 on it. My hat has 42 on it. Not this one, but the other one. But I love the Grotesque Jackie Robinson, but the mask card is just a card that we're going to look back on in 10, 15 years and know when it was printed and why it was printed.
No, absolutely. And to be fair, could be subject to change if something incredible comes out. Certainly there's enough time, and there's enough.
2020. What else could happen this year, right?
Exactly. Well, the thing is, also to your point that you've made before, the artists also now have the opportunity to look back to what they've already done. Correct. And they can themselves pivot if something comes up or something happens that inspires them to make an adjustment.
Yeah. Ben Baller, for example, Ben Baller's Cal Ripken is all black for a reason, right? That's another moment card. It kind of gets lost in the shuffle because of the diamonds and things like that. But that's another card that's in the moment with Project 2020. So there are other cards out there that speak to current times.
Absolutely. So Zach has got FDOT, Blake, and King Saladin as his favorites so far. Some legit options there. FDOT's done some good stuff. I like some of Blake's stuff. I think I don't think you have bad choices. Except Ermsey, that's a bad choice.
I think the one Gregory Siff is an artist who I've really become attached to and really enjoy his artwork. And I really think if you take away his Nolan Ryan, which is card number 2 on his list, because that card was so different for the fan base, we didn't know what it was. Yeah. If you make that card like card 18, 19, people love Siff a lot more because his last 4 cards, the Gibson, the Gwynn, the Ricky, have been fantastic. But his first couple of cards were really strange, and we didn't understand him at the time. So it also, we talk about evolution in the set. If an artist put out a weird card first, now 10 cards later, people are like, well, now I'm barely figuring this artist. I'm just barely discovering this artist now.
No, I think that's fair. And I think at the end of the day, Topps didn't execute this flawlessly. I think there were definitely some mistakes made, but they did happen upon something that triggered just right time, right place. And it just so happens to capture imagination. And we've still got time. I think there's an opportunity for a couple more waves before we finish this thing off and see where everybody goes to it. And
if you go back to listen to Jeff's interview with Blake, he does mention that they had MLB signed up for advertisements and publicity at the ballparks and stadiums, and you can only dream about what this set could have been with Blake Jameson or Ben Baller on Sunday Night Baseball talking about their recent release, right? That would talk about an incredible print run or an incredible set overall. So I think there's still time. It just depends on what happens with baseball throughout the end of this year and next year, and because MLB is the only company right now that's not promoted this the right way, because it's really hard to promote it right now because there's no fans of the game.
No, I think that's a fair point. Yeah, I think it will come down to what the follow-up is, because there is still some time. I think based on the scheduling, when does card 400 approximately come out?
I think it's the 29th, but because they did skip Blackout Tuesday, I think that it's going to be the 30th, but I could be wrong, and I've not mapped it out, but it will be before the end of the year. It's right before, the 31st.
Right. No, I think that's kind of the point at which, so the halfway point here was really interesting. That was, like I said, that was the reason why I wanted to reach out to you. But I would almost love to have a follow-up conversation, like a post-mortem after it concludes, because then we've got the whole picture. Now we're not halfway through. We're kind of guessing on what the second half looks like. But I think it's going to be a more complete image, and I think the conversation is going to have a lot more meat to it once we're like, these are the 400 cards. This is it.
Yeah. No more.
Money bears and all this has happened.
Yeah. Like that first one is going to be weird. Like, where are the cards at? There's no new cards. Where's 401? Where's 402?
But there'll be plenty to talk about at that stage.
Yeah,
so I think if you'd be game, I'd love to have that conversation after, because then we're going to have a lot more to talk about. I think it's going to be a lot more.
I can talk about Project 2020 all day long. So you know me, no problem at all.
Absolutely. I think we'll try to make that happen. I think that'll be good. Well, I think that's a perfect spot right here. If you want to hang tight for 2 seconds, Chris.
Definitely.
So everybody, it has been a wonderful stream. You've been fantastic. We've been able to interact with you a little bit, which has been great. So thank you to those of you that have been checking it out and hanging around. Chris's information has been scrolling through the bottom of the screen the whole time, by the way. CRT Sportscards is his YouTube channel. You got his Twitter down there. CRT Sportscards is the YouTube, and his website is crtsportscards.com. That's where you can get those lovely graphs and check out the images and get a whole bunch of data. Anything else you want to promote there, Chris, as far as your social medias?
No, it's all there. Do you have Instagram on there? I'm not good on Instagram, but I'm on Instagram, same thing, CRT Sportscards. I'm learning Instagram. I'm not a photo person, but at the same time, I'm on Instagram too. So you can reach me on there also.
Absolutely. And you should definitely still check it out, even though I think is it weekly episodes now that you've adjusted to?
Now they're weekly, they're bi-weekly. I do a Sunday morning episode where I talk about basically the week as a whole. And then I do a Thursday midweek update where I talk about the first 6 cards and then the first 2 print runs of the week, and then maybe a topic of the day. So now it's bi-weekly, Sunday and Thursday. And I'm also right now putting out the artist series, which is I'm taking every artist, their first 10 cards, ranking them out. I'm going to have a Blake Jameson's video today. I just talked to Blake this morning for an hour. So it's a full 1-hour episode where we talk about his 10 cards. He does break some news in that episode, so check that out.
That's a tease, everybody. That's a tease.
Nice. It was a really great tidbit he dropped on us, which is great in the video. But yeah, so I'm trying to get more artists on these. I'm trying to be selective here, but I would like to get more artists on there. I'm trying to make these artist series positive. I'm not critiquing any cards. I've been very honest. This is my 10th favorite card. It's not it's not their 10th worst card. I can't draw, right? So I'm not trying to critique him. So it's a positive spin. But we had a really good conversation. We talked about Project 2020. We talked about his first cards. Then we sort of segued back to Project 2020, and then we got back to his top card. So it was a really good, very seamless interview, and I'm posting it up at about 99% unedited. I had to cut out one part where I forgot the question. But other than that, it's going to be a full unedited interview going up around 5 o'clock Pacific time tonight.
Absolutely. Well, that's exciting. That'll be something interesting worth checking out. So real quick, I'll throw a couple more comments here just as we finish up. So absolutely, you are more than welcome. It was a great conversation. Chris has been a wonderful guest, so thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. I've been thinking about doing a live show once a week instead of an edited show, but I'm like, I like these edited shows too much. But maybe I'll mess with the live show here soon on my channel. It is a different animal. It's one of those things you do have to. There is like a different kind of prep work to it. Because I was sitting here at this desk before we started chatting. It came on. I was like, all right, get microphone, because you're tracking it. You got the other screen going, and all this is happening. But it's actually kind of fun once you get in the rhythm of it. Yeah. But and it is kind of fun having real people responding to you in real time. You do get that instantaneous feedback. So I would say to you, if it's something you're interested in, you don't have to make it a regular thing. Yeah. But once in a blue moon, it's kind of fun. Yeah. And that's why I put in bloopers now. Cause I think it was Paul Lasco on Twitter. He's like, you need to put bloopers in it. So now most of my videos have a blooper, at least one, to try to show that, look, this is not just one done in one take. There are legitimate errors that happen when I do these videos. So I think it adds some humor, and it shows, that I'm really doing this, just for fun in a sense.
Absolutely. No, I think at the same time, we're human beings. So sometimes it's kind of fun to be able to see bloopers or live shows or whatever. There is no editing happening right here. Like if we mess up, we messed up. Like
exactly. I know.
It is what it is. So you have to kind of walk the red tightrope. But Chris, thank you so much for coming on. CRT Sportscard, everybody, you got to check it out. One last plug before we go, though. I want to talk to, because my buddy, got to give him his plug, right? So we'll give him his plug here before we finish up. I haven't updated this. So Sportscard Live tonight at 10 p.m. If you like your hobby live streams, you're going to get another one. and you're going to get one with Tony Sirianni from Upper Deck. That's their product manager. He's going to talk about making products and a couple different things. They are live, and they do take questions as well from the audience. So it gets a little raucous in there sometimes. Yeah. So, and Jeremy has teased a new after-hours show as well. So that could be something if he's playing around with his format too. He's like everybody else.
Yeah.
He is also from a pandemic person who started making content because of the pandemic.
Okay. Yeah.
And has now kind of pivoted into it. So everybody's kind of taking their own slant on it. Making a live show works for him. He does the opposite. He doesn't do the pre-tape shows. He does only live shows.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. That makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate you all. You're more than welcome to stick around and subscribe to the channel if you want to check out other content. I will do live streams some of this from time to time. I do try to stick to either talking to either collectors, because Chris is a collector as well. That's why we talked about that a little bit in this conversation. But if there's some value we can add, or if you've got suggestions on a guest you'd like to see, I'm more than happy to have that conversation with anybody. But thank you, Chris, once again. Let me take off here, and then we'll catch you all next time. Thank you.
Thank you.